told Cowboy wrote this script. I want to see Cowboy's iteration of this scenario. Satie Gossett is the director. Oh, he sucks. I'll wait till it comes out on Netflix or Tubi. He only does stuff with midgets in it. It's weird. They're all short films.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to, let's see, episode 1, 2, 3, 4. We're finally at 4 of BizUnLearned and a new guest today. Once again, it's Cowboy and Mark, and we have with us today Satie Gossett. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's probably because he is the son of Louis Gossett Jr. So he grew up in Hollywood. He has seen all of the changes over the years that have really taken place. And of course, we're all about BizUnLearned. And so there was a lot of times Hollywood went through some shifts. They unlearned some things. They didn't necessarily have to learn to do something differently, but people were renegades. They did their own thing. And independent films came about, much like publishing. The publishing houses now are struggling because people can independently publish now. They're like, I don't need you. Piss off. And so they can independently publish now. This is affecting film and everything else now. I mean, even Amazon is leaving an avenue for independent movie situations. And so this is becoming pretty huge, and it's definitely changing the industry in a big way. And I could think of no better person to talk about it than Satie. So, Satie, take it away. I mean, you've got your own show now with Pan and Zoom. I mean, what's going on with that?
Oh, Pan and Zoom is great. It's about a half-hour talk show that I host where we talk to creatives about their journey through the creative space. What was their initial spark? What was their big break? How they sustain themselves, and what wisdom they can impart to people that want to get into their field. And it's great. It's a lot of anecdotes, cautionary tales, triumphs, heartbreaks, and it's good because it kind of grounds people, and it's like, hey, it's not a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's just like a lot of hard work and lucky breaks, and just kind of putting your head down and doing the work. Because and the end of the day, it's all about the work.
Sure.
Nothing else
Sure.
matters, and the process is more important than the journey.
I mean, you grew up with people like, I mean, shit, you ended up meeting Muhammad Ali, and your dad was friends with Sidney Poitier, and you had Dustin Hoffman and people like this. You probably played cards with as a kid or something. And it's like, but when did you really start learning about the industry as a business?
Well, to be fair, probably after college, I went to Syracuse University in upstate New York, and I studied video, TV, radio, film production. And, that's where I really kind of learned the machinations of the business and how things are monetized, how things are acquired and distributed, and like really what it takes. And, I took that course because as a creative, I didn't want to be blindsided. Just say, oh, I know I said previously it's about the work, but you also have to have a head for business and know how to navigate those waters, know
Sure.
what all the industry terms that are going to come flying at you, what they mean, and how you can make it work for you.
Right.
Because in entertainment, you are your own business, your identity. Satie Gossett is a business.
Right.
Cowboy
Right.
is a
Absolutely.
business. Mark is a business and a sommelier as well.
Yes, he is.
Do with wine, guys, if you're not up on your wine terms.
And but I've done a lot of projects, but not until you and I started talking about my second book, Insane in Ukraine, turning that into a movie, that I ever seen such radical political bullshit and stakeholder management that is going on in Hollywood. I mean, can you talk about that type of thing and how it's changing with independence?
Yeah, I mean, Hollywood really is kind of the good old boys club. the ultimate in relationship based business. The dark side of that is the whole Me Too movement. We're part of that, and women getting taken advantage of to get a shot in Hollywood, and kind of from Cosby to Weinstein to Epstein. It's a nepotism at its finest.
Right. Right.
And can make things very insular, because only certain people will get all the work.
Sure. Sure.
If you kind of capitulate to those terms. In SAG, only like 99% only 99% of the SAG union actors don't make a living as an actor. It's like 1% actually make a living as an actor, and those are all the people you see
Wow.
on TV. And then a new person will kind of eke in, and then they'll become the flavor of the month, so on and so forth. And that's almost across the board, you know.
Wow.
So it's like a sperm going to an egg. Not everyone's getting in.
Yeah. Right.
But actually,
You have all these guys out here.
that's a great point. That's a great point, because if you take an industry that I know well, like the coaching industry, that the figures that you'll hear is there's over 2 million coaches of one kind or another on LinkedIn alone, and
Yeah.
depending on who you talk to, it's a figure like it's certainly less than 5%, and often
Right.
1% that are making any kind of livable amount. Because
Yeah.
in reality, and because it's the industry I know best, they are not salespeople. And they go and get trained, and they want to deliver coaching. They want to be coaches, just like a chiropractor wants to, do your bending and your. They don't want to be turned into salespeople. But what the world's doing to them now is effectively saying, well, you've got to be great at LinkedIn posting, and you've got to be great at, and A, they don't want to do it, and B, they won't do it well, because the business model is flawed. And if you bring that back to your example with the 1% of actors who make a living, and I mentioned before we came on air, Michael Ovitz of the packaging and the super agency fair, he's the one that started to go, well, if we got the producers, and if we got the screenplay people, and if we got all the people involved in making a movie together, not just the actors, then they could package the movie or the series, and then they could create a bidding war amongst the studios or whoever the people who were going to fund it. That model now is arguably one of the biggest business unlearned points as to why we started this whole podcast, because the model isn't working for most people. The Spotify model for the musicians, as you said again off air, lots of people can do music. But only a tiny percent are making money out of it, because the business models that they're attached to are just not going to sustain them.
No, it's true. And kind of to piggyback off that, if you notice, a lot of these kind of generational artists, what they're doing is they're buying up their publishing.
Yes.
Or,
Right.
Yes.
they're either selling their publishing, or they're buying their publishing, so they can retain more control of their revenue streams. Because I think it was like Snoop, like he had to have like some like a million plays of his songs to make like $1,000, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's
Right.
like, why even bother?
Right. I mean, I've
Um,
heard the same thing about authors lately, that had traditional publishers. They're like, fuck
mhm.
you, I'm buying my publishing rights back, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
because at least I can control the revenue stream, and I don't have to cut people in.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Because it's not worth it. I mean, and back to Ovitz, I think the key thing that needs to be mentioned is, yeah, he's getting these producers and these screenwriters and actors all in line under his umbrella, and that's the key. He owns all of these people, and then you take that power to the studios and say, hey, I want you to work with all of my people. And if you
Right.
don't want to work with all of my people at, say, Paramount, I'm going to take Julia Roberts to Warner Brothers, and you won't get to work with her at all, because she does what I say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So it's a little cartelly.
And
But you
And me, the project
the key
management
word,
guy, right? I
Satie.
think that that's great. I really do. I we have struggled. I mean, our project is, we put a $40 million price tag on it, and we've been struggling through this traditional, non-traditional process, that type of thing. But when you consider all the ages, these gatekeeping people and stuff like that, just to keep you away from the people who could be part of your team and probably want to be part of your project, it's huge, and the politics is huge, and the overhead, the overhead money is huge because all of these people are getting paid. So I could see movies being much less expensive if we didn't have to play all the politics and the games and everything, and the independent industry really was able to take off and eliminate some of these roadblocks. I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, less pigs at the trough would be nice, but we still got to work towards that because there's always, if it's not people in charge of production, it's the distribution. If it's not distribution, it's the marketing. Someone's always going to have their finger in the pie.
Sure, sure,
And it's the very rare few people that can control all aspects of that stream.
sure.
You know, um, George Lucas is like the kind of perfect example, but he almost had to finesse and finagle, and he took advantage of the studio's greed because they didn't have the insight. Like for instance, like with merchandising and the toys for Star Wars. I don't know if you heard the story
Sure. The
about
toys
that.
for Star Wars was huge.
Yeah,
Huge.
but the studios at the time didn't have the foresight because nothing like that had come across their desk. And he's like, "Say, oh, I just want to control the merchandise." And and they thought they had got over on him. And then he
And
used
he
the
made a shit ton of money.
he made a shit ton of money, and he was able to finance the next two films and only use the studios as his distributor.
Right, right,
And they're like, "Oh, we're never gonna let this shit happen again."
right.
you know,
But Satie, you're highlighting a key. You mentioned a key word before that the States and the UK uses slightly differently, but it means the same thing. You called it an umbrella that people can operate under, and whether it's the Ovitz form in Hollywood or we use as one of our examples what lawyers in the UK do. The barrister guys, the guys that you see in the funny wigs and
with
the ones that
the
do
white
the
hats,
pitching thing.
the white
Yeah.
wigs, the wigs.
Those guys. Well, the vast majority of them, which we call barristers, they're self-employed and they're attached to a thing called chambers. And the chambers is run by dudes that are often third generation clerks, and they are both hustlers who go out networking in the bars at night, and they're
hmm
also administrators par excellence, because you think of the admin that's involved in these big cases and all and they've got to bring the brief to the barrister. Well, that model, in the language you used earlier, that's an umbrella business that the lawyers, because they pay to have access to the rooms, the facilities, the administrators, because everybody wins on that in terms of the business model. And it's almost like that's the business unlearning point that we're talking about, that Hollywood now is so powerful and so well known. And you guys are talking about the politics and a lot of snouts in the trough. But the independent bit, it's almost independent with a twist, because it's independent, but it's got to be a group of people coming together to organize those independents. That's how you can, in Bill's inimitable terms, get shit done today. It's got to be that organizing
Right.
piece, because the individual won't do it on their own.
No, it's true. And even though we can say it's independent, they still have to come home to daddy, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
You can get an independent film made for $50K to $1 million. You can make
Yeah.
it. You can go to Sundance or whatever, and it's still you still have the hope is to get scooped up by a studio or a distributor. So it's only independent to a point.
Right. Right.
instead of
I
instead of
mean, you
being.
know, Netflix. We've talked about that a lot. We've had a hard time breaking into Netflix. I mean, I'm thinking about Kevin Costner right now. He pretty much went independent with this Horizon thing, and it sounds like he's kind of losing his ass at the moment. I mean, it was
Yeah,
a
he
high
kind of
risk
had to mortgage his
situation.
own. He mortgaged his own assets to get it done.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if someone like him has to do that, then people like us are like,
We're fucked.
well, yeah, you said
So
it.
what?
You know,
So given that Costner's a name that everybody on this call will pretty certainly know about, how does somebody of his repute, he's one of the last 25 years, he's one of the most known, isn't he, Kevin Costner, of some of the big movies. So how has he, do
hmm
you know, ended up in that, having to sell off his own assets to get something done? How's he ended up in that position?
well, because none of the big studios or financiers felt that the projects he wanted to do were viable enough to put money behind.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why. That's the short answer. Even Tyler Perry, for as big and powerful as he is, he still has to answer to somebody else.
Yeah.
Spielberg, probably one of the only dudes now that can call his own shot when he wants.
Maybe Clint Eastwood.
Tarantino can make films when he wants, but he has
Yeah.
his certain brand, and he's in that lane where like his films are kind of an event. You know,
Mm.
um, Coppola had to sell off his whole winery to get his latest film off the ground.
No
120 million.
shit.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, like 120 million dollars. He self-financed the film
Wow.
because none of the studios would make it,
Wow.
and he said it took him 40 years to get the film done.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I think it's called Megapolis or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
that film. Yeah, so you can see the trailers, and apparently it's already sparking controversy. This, that, and the other thing. So
Well, it's like Mark, Satie and I talked about this a lot. I mean, major franchises like, James Bond, 007, Ian Fleming, English. He was with Naval Intelligence in England. And of course, they get a movie out now where a character in the movie, which is supposed to have come out from Winston Churchill's archives that have recently been released, was supposed to have been supposedly the inspiration for 007. But if memory serves me right, Ian Fleming did the book in 58. They didn't get a James Bond movie until 68, 10 years. 10 years, and it's a monster franchise, but it took 10 years to do the first one. Wolf of Wall Street, same deal. Well, 10 years. you
mhm.
know this is not an easy process, not by any means. So Sati and I are like 4.5 years in, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and it really is a game of attrition.
Yeah, it's like, but yeah, you and I are like 4.5 years in here,
Yeah, and we've kissed a
and
couple frogs thus far.
yeah, no shit, right?
I mean, the dynamic for me is a double-edged sword because I'm trying to make my bones in the business too, but then also
Sure,
I call it the Fredo effect. Whereas people were coming to me with the hopes that they could finagle a way to get to my dad.
sure,
It's
sure.
like, hey, we got this project, and we'll give you an associate producer credit if you can get your dad to be a part of it, type
Ah,
thing.
right,
And then,
right.
in the beginning, I was like, hey, Dad, I got this project. And he would smell the ruse a mile away. He's like, dude, you got to be
Sure,
tougher and
sure,
you got to be thicker skin and see they're just trying to use you. And then, that was my learning curve.
sure. And what you're saying there is not uncommon for a lot of this incestual stuff in Hollywood. Angelina Jolie and John Voight, they didn't get along for a long fucking time. Then she wants to make her own way. Scott Eastwood and Clint Eastwood's son, he wants to make his own way.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
It does, and the the argument is that screenwriters don't matter, but they absolutely matter because they're the material, and
Yeah.
it's an asset based business. And when I say
Yep.
asset, it's not the script, it's the movie star or the director or the IP.
Right. Right.
Because those are the things that are ultimately going to drive people to turn over dollars.
Right.
I want to see Clint Eastwood. I want to see, Dakota Fanning. I want to see Denzel Washington, you know,
Right.
break the mafia's limbs or whatever.
Right.
That people will pay $10 now to see that.
Sure.
Oh, so and so. Oh, Cowboy wrote this script. I want to see Cowboy's iteration of this
Right.
scenario. Satie
Absolutely.
Gossett is the director. Oh, he sucks. I'll wait till it comes out on Netflix or Tubi. He only does stuff with midgets in it. It's weird. They're all short films.
Oh shit! That's been a long
Allegedly.
running joke for us, Mark.
But
and
you just
But
said
if you've ever seen Satie, if you've ever seen Satie next to his dad, he's huge. Okay, I mean Satie is big. Okay,
yeah,
he
wait, wait,
just
wait, wait,
towers
wait.
over everything.
Way to get personal. I'm trying to lose weight. Thanks a lot, buddy.
No, I mean you're tall, man. His dad looks like a foot shorter.
Well, my dad in his heyday, he was 6'4", but with age, he did recede a little bit, but he still
Sure, yeah.
towers over me in other ways. So,
Yeah, that was a really interesting thing that you told me. He was actually recruited for NBA basketball, but chose to be an actor.
because back then, actors on Broadway made more money than NBA players.
Yeah.
Like now, I mean, Steph Curry got paid $62 million for one season last week.
Oh wow. Okay, there you
You
go.
know, so it was an obvious choice
So
for him.
what do you attribute like the success of Robert Rodriguez and stuff to? I mean, what do because I mean he is like for me he is like the figurehead of independent films, and of course and he's in Austin, Texas.
Well, I mean, with Robert, he kind of parlayed his initial success, and his talent was recognized by like Tarantino and New Line Cinema, and
Right.
he was able to leverage that. He was very smart at how he leveraged that into creating a career for himself.
Right.
And I think that delineates people like him versus people who were kind of like one and dones. You know,
Right.
like he did the original El Mariachi for $3,000 because he donated blood.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Yeah, look up his origin story. He donated blood on the weekends to raise money to shoot El Mariachi, and he shot it for three
I
grand.
never heard that.
Yeah, yeah, and then based off, and then El Mariachi was seen by the powers that be, and they loved his ingenuity so much that they gave him a buttload of money to do Desperado, and people like Tarantino saw it and said, "Yo, I love your work. I want to be a part of your work." Oh, Cowboy wrote this script. I want to see Cowboy's iteration of this
Right.
scenario. Satie
Absolutely.
Gossett is the director. Oh, he sucks. Oh, Cowboy wrote this script. I want to see Cowboy's iteration of this
Right.
scenario. Satie
Absolutely.
Gossett is the director. Oh, he sucks. And you put Tarantino in your film, and he's on the rise, and so you got two stars kind of going up,
Right.
supporting each
Yeah.
other, and
Yeah.
parlaying and leveraging. And then
Tarantino used to work in a fucking video store.
he used to work out in a video store, and that's
Yeah.
where he got all that useless knowledge, and he just kind
Yeah.
of created his work, which is just a pastiche of everyone else's work.
Right. Right.
And his genius is weaving that pastiche of other people's work.
Yeah.
So when you watch his stuff, it always feels like, oh, I've seen this before. It says yes, because you have, but he just spun it in a new and original way, and that's all that.
Sure.
All stories are derivative. It's just how it's told. And he
Right.
does the nonlinear thing, and he's got the foot fetish thing, and but
Right.
that's what draws all of these big stars to his films, is because his stuff is very left of center. you know
Sure.
and it gives them an opportunity to kind of get out of the usual things that they usually do.
Right.
So you'll have De Niro as a pot smoking bank robber. You'll have,
Right.
you have John Travolta as a heroin addicted hitman.
Sure.
Because it gives them a
Yeah.
chance to kind of stretch their instrument, which kind of goes back to pan and zoom, where it's all about the work. And if it gives them an opportunity to showcase different sides of themselves as an artisan, they will do that, and they can trust someone like Tarantino to give them the space to do that.
Right.
You know,
Well, we've constantly talked about for doing projects in Hollywood. We've constantly talked, and this is why I keep looking more at the independents. I didn't know that Robert Rodriguez actually sold blood for $3,000 to actually do his first movie, so that's kind of cool. Okay.
no, he had to go several times. He didn't get it all,
Yeah,
but
no
he had
shit.
to go.
I hope it wasn't all at once. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Or give me the check now. I'll keep coming back every week, right?
yeah.
But we've constantly talked about, if you got the people, you'll get the money, and then if you got the money, you'll get the people, and it's like, well, shit. Okay. I mean, how do you get there? And this is the epitome of what I have seen in the 4 years that we've 4.5 years that we've been running back and forth together and talking about these things. This is the epitome that I've seen in trying to get this damn project done. You can't even get past a fucking agent if you can't say I got money.
It's like the Black Hand in The Godfather 2. You know,
Yeah,
you can't get past us and you let me wet my beak.
yeah.
It's-
It's like, what the
Mm.
fuck?
Maybe.
You
well,
know?
also, that same agent will be on a golf course with a writer and say, "Hey, I got this script." Oh yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Right.
See the difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a friend of a friend. You've already been pre-qualified, where I don't have to put up that gate for you.
Sure.
Let's go into the sauna together. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're sauna buddies. I'll give you a 3-picture deal, no problem.
No shit.
And sometimes just getting in that quote unquote good old boys club, and that's in all fields of industry, not just film. Just like if you want to be a part of the
Absolutely.
law firm, you got to do XYZ. If you want to become a
Right.
union member in whatever field, you got to do XYZ, pay your dues.
Yep.
Sometimes it's clear cut, sometimes it's very nebulous and a sliding scale. Hollywood is very much a sliding scale as to how you get in. That's why nepotism is so strong. That's why they call it nepo babies, XYZ. I didn't
Yep.
get that memo, but
Right.
that's okay. That's why
Right.
I'm kind of still slogging away doing it. But with each project that I do, you learn a little bit more, you get a little bit more relationships, and you kind of add more weapons to your arsenal in order to make it.
Sure.
And to get philosophical, you got to figure out, what is your end game? What is your why as to why you're putting up with all this BS?
Well, I mean, that's huge. I mean, I've I've sat here having a couple of beers every now and then, going, you know, when we finally get this damn thing done, I don't think I'll ever do another one a fucking again. Okay. But at the same time, I'm going, well, if we do this and it's successful, I know the next one's easier to do. So
Well,
walking away
there's
from
that
it would be
too.
stupid.
Yeah. And there's that too. And assuming that, the project is a massive success, to say, hey, we want to fund your next 3 projects,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, you and I have been on calls together where, we're trying to get our first project off the ground, and it's like, well, what's your next one? And I'm like, what the fuck? We don't have the first one off the ground yet. Okay. I haven't thought about the second one. And it was like Ralph. Ralph was like, don't ever tell anybody you don't have the next project yet. Don't ever do that. Okay. Tell them you got the next one too.
It's funny, like, when you go to these networking meetings and this, that, and the other thing, kind of what you just said. If you're like at a cocktail party and they're like, hey, what do you got going on? It's like, I have, and this is what you're supposed to say with a straight
Yeah.
face. I have various projects in certain stages of production
Yeah.
or development. I have various projects in certain levels of development. That's the line. It's nebulous, but it sounds fortuitous at the same time.
Yep.
And to the untrained ear, they'll like, "Oh, really? Okay, you must got a lot going on." It's like I'm gonna eat more
I
olives
pulled
at
one
the
out of my ass this morning. Okay.
exactly. I'm gonna go get some more olives from the charcuterie place now. And
Oh my god.
but like, no, as
So
a
I
writer, they
mean,
say you should have at least 4 or 5 scripts from different genres in your holster.
yeah,
Like, oh, I have a comedy, I have a horror film, I have an action, I have a thriller, I have a political drama. What do you got?
sure,
You know,
yeah. And of course we've had these conversations a lot, and of course we've had many meetings, directors, producers, actors, you and I writing and all kinds of shit. Okay, and from pitch decks to every fucking thing else. What are the instruments we need? This, that, and the other thing. How do we tell our message? But do you think that the independent push is the way to go?
I mean, whether we want to admit it or not, everyone wants to be a company man. I hate to
Right,
say it. Everyone wants to wear the dress to the ball.
right.
Independence is fun. But I don't know. It's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. Do you want to still be plugged in, or do you want to be able to do what you want, call your own shot? I mean, I'll backtrack. I think everyone wants it like wants their cake and eat it too. They want to be independent and have the freedom to move with the resources of the studio.
Sure.
That would be the ultimate, like where you
Didn't
can
you
move
just say it
unfettered.
then, though, Satie? You just said something really important again there, that yeah, people want their independence, but they also want to be kind of inside the company. And again, that coaching example I used earlier on, when we surveyed, a couple of thousand of them, what they actually said they wanted, that they're not entrepreneurs. We called them enterprisers because they're like in betweenies. They don't want a boss. They don't want to. They don't want to be. What time was it at 9 o'clock? Why were you late? They don't want any of that. But they want, at the same token, to be part of something that knows it's their birthday, or they want all these human bits, and they certainly want to be being able to access the big contracts. Well, if you apply that to your line about they want to be part of the company, the job then has got to be redefining what the company is. And that's why I started reading about people like Stephen Ovitz and things, because he redefined something and created, albeit in your terms a bit cartelish, but it's a form of the new way of getting independent talent together and then being able to finance it, because ultimately it's about finance, isn't it? Ultimately it's gonna come down whether we
Resources.
like it or not. So it's that redefinition of the company has got to really be forms of what Ovitz did, different forms of collaboration, different forms of getting people together with them in their right places so that you can then go, there you go, guys. Who wants to be in this? Who wants to be part of this? Because you create, it's that supply and demand thing, isn't it? You've got to be able to create the inward energy. Otherwise, you're just touting around with thousands of other projects.
That's true.
Right.
And control is very important. Being able to control how you can create projects, who you can create projects with, so on and so forth. And you don't want to have to necessarily answer to anybody. Um, that's the ideal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the academy has been huge in this lately. I mean, you and I have talked about it many times, right? It's like, we might finally get an offer for money, but they're like, I want you to make Natasha black. And I'm like, she's a Ukrainian woman. She wasn't black, you know? but with the new rules that the Academy is coming up with, is like, well, you have to have a gay scene or a lesbian scene or something like that, or you're not eligible for awards, or you have to have these things, and so you start to see this in Star Trek now and everything else, right? You know,
Well,
and
again, it's all
it's
dollars
huge.
based. It's all
Yeah,
dollars based. The studio, I mean, here's the thing, the kind of peek behind the curtain. The studios don't care. The
right,
studios are only going to gravitate towards what's going to make them dollars at that moment.
right.
So if it's LGBTQ, if that's the movement, of course that's going to be in all the content. If it's Asian based, of course it's all going to be in there.
They
If
made
it, I
Mr. and Mrs. Smith over again.
Yeah, I mean they redid The Killer, John
Right.
Woo's The Killer with black
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and I feel offended because it looks terrible.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't care that they're black. I care that about the content of the film, because the
Yeah.
original Killer that was done in the early '90s was like a masterpiece, and now you're going to just
Right.
add black people because you want more people of color to look at it,
Yeah. Well,
because
I mean,
they're the
it
ones
was
paying the
like the John
bills.
Kirk thing, right? They were like, "There's not enough black people or women." It's in the world. It's set in the English Channel in World War II. What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Well, it's interesting you brought up the Academy, because like for a long time the Academy was populated with, the voting base was very, very vanilla. I'll just leave it that way.
Right.
So as a result, the type of films that won, or actors, were all kind of vanilla, and you'd have some upstart African American films in there, but they would never win because look who's voting for them. So
Sure.
in the last like 10 years, a lot of those people have passed away, and there's been a new regime in the Academy where they're people of color. So they've opened up the coffers, and now it's like all these people of color are going to be voting on these films that have certain sensibilities, like LGBTQ or African American. So you're going to start seeing films with more people of color winning, and that's not by
Sure.
accident, because the voting base is changing.
Right.
You know,
And I mean, I remember, well, I think I do. I mean, I had the privilege of meeting your dad just the one time, and but he went through a lot being a black actor. I mean, with like guns pointed at him in Beverly Hills, and if I recall right, he was even chained to a tree for a couple hours once because they didn't have any idea who the hell he was.
yeah, that's one of the many stories that he dealt with in the trials and tribulations of, the first ones always catch the most heat, you know,
Yeah,
and that he caught heat, but he made a conscious decision to deal with the heat because he felt that the position he was in and what he was representing exceeded his personal struggles,
sure,
if that makes sense. Kind of like Jackie Robinson.
sure,
And Jackie Robinson wasn't the best player to come out of the Negro Leagues. It was Josh Gibson, but Josh Gibson was a jerk, and he
right,
wasn't as palatable as Jackie Robinson. You
right,
know, and
right,
Pop was willing to deal with the slings and arrows of racism because he knew black people were watching,
sure.
and that helped them open up the doors for all the black actors you see today.
Well, there's a lot of power in the movies. I mean, let's face facts. There was never a black president in the White House until there was a black president in the movies.
Yeah, I mean, because it's one of those things where you have to like lay it out to the people and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing," and then people get used to the idea,
Right.
and then it happens, and we very well have we very well may have a first female president, not
Sure.
only female president, but president of color in the White House. If the orange guy doesn't finagle polls,
The orange guy, yes.
the
Yes, the orange guy.
orange guy, the bullet dodger, if he finds a way to finagle his way into the White House, we'll make history.
Right, right. Yeah.
Um, but that the ideas have to be implanted in media first
Sure.
before it becomes a reality. And reality,
So so
my dad was like a very much a maverick when he won the Oscar, because the people he was up against, they all seemed like they were all shoo-ins. And he said in his own words he was just happy to be invited to the party. But it was the Academy voting based on the East Coast that got him in to win the Oscar.
Right. And if I remember right, he was the first black actor that ever got a supporting actor award, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So that was huge. So if you had to like generate your own perfect idea with decades of experience, having lived in Hollywood and everything, what would it look like in order to be able to just make a movie and not deal with bullshit?
You'd have your financiers that you deal with and say, hey, I have this idea. Sure, how much do you need? $3 million. Okay, great. We have distribution in place already. You hire your casting director or your buddies that you know in the industry and say, hey, I want uh so and so and so and so to make this film for me, and you just go out and shoot it, and they distribute it for you, and you're good.
But at the same time, you just say buddies in the industry. You still got to get to that point of having buddies in the industry, and there's so many damn roadblocks.
There
Okay.
is,
I mean, I think that we're considered privileged to have the people that we have on our Insane in Ukraine team right now. We're lucky to have put that together.
I mean, I'm on a lower level, but I'm able to do pan and zoom and get all those people on the show because those are all my buddies. I have
Right.
personal relationships with all those people, and I can make a phone call and say, hey, do you want to be on my show? And they'll say,
Right.
yeah, sure. When do you want me to be there?
Right.
I'm at, but that's my buddy level.
Right.
I'm not
Right.
like at a Jason Statham buddy level where I can call up Jason. Hey, you want to be in my film? I have to
Right.
go through gatekeepers.
Sure.
So
Sure.
maybe I need higher level buddies. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we'll get there.
I think that we all want higher level buddies.
Absolutely.
I mean,
So Mark, you and I have talked about this good old boy thing many times in business. What do you think, and how does it compare to what you're hearing here as far as Hollywood goes?
Well, that last piece that Satie just talked about then, that for me is very much this whole area of we can see what the ideal is, but all the people that you're bringing together for, in this case, a movie, they're not the people who want to do the job of pulling it all together. They're all production people and whatever their skills are. So from our point of view, from the business unlearned point, we're back to that one again about brain surgeons don't stand outside the hospital and say, hey, come in, you need a brain operation. So it's like, to add to Satie's model, in your language, Bill, it might be, is it a project manager? In my language, it would be a biz connector, but it's the person or team in the middle who kind of works with, if Satie's the guy with the project, the idea, then what the unlearning or the new learning, creating the space for the new learning, is to have a thing, an organization, a person, whatever that is, who kind of does all the project management in that sense. When we had a hotel about 30 miles away from here, it was an old building, we did a lot of work. We had a project manager who he went and got the suppliers. I chose the colors and I oversaw and I paid for it, but I had project management people making, and their whole pitch was whatever we paid them, we would save on the deals that they could do with the suppliers. So it's a proven
Sure.
model that doesn't seem to be getting applied because, again, it's about these things don't come together well if the people doing it are doing it so that they can do something else. It's got to be done by the people who, we do this so they get to do something else. And that's the project management. The whole reason you and I are together is because there's huge skills in project management and the whole connecting people thing. It's that blend that seems to be the path to a new way of doing business that can certainly help the Saties of this world when they've got those, I've got this terrific project. How do we validate it? But you've got to have that team in place, because otherwise the percentage says it's extremely low likelihood of success.
And to dovetail off that, if you watch any of the major successful filmmakers, and you look at the credits and you look at their films, most of the time you'll always see the same names.
Right.
Because of, those that's the shorthand. It's like, I can rely on this person to do this on the film. I can rely on this editor to do this because I know what I'm going to get. They just create that formula of success and replicate it.
Right.
So,
but that's, we would see that.
Buddy, it's been a bit since I've talked to you.
Has it?
Well, we get some messages back and forth, but you and I haven't really sat down and talked for a while. I haven't heard from you. We haven't had a really long conversation since your son tried to come down here with the cartels breaking out of prison, and you're like, "Hey man, what's going on?"
rating the TV stations and such.
Yeah,
good times.
And I was like, yeah, don't come, not right now, okay?
Not ideal.
So is it time?
Mark, you got anything else?
The
Is the hat on? Because we're in the last 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, the hat's on.
The hat's on. I don't wear it like you do, Bill. I'm not the cowboy, am I? So, Satie, from your point of view, if you forecast forward a little bit and go, what's got to happen in a play? Everybody knows Hollywood, and even Bollywood, whatever the rules that they have making movies. And our little thing that we could talk about separately, if you like, is called Quallywood. You put a Q in front of it. That's the distribution for the kind of stuff we're doing. So, but let's go back to Hollywood. If Hollywood effectively is a distribution system, it's not just a sign on the hill. There's an awful lot of people involved. There's a whole international industry, isn't there? If you project forward now, then what's the BizUnLearned points that we can wrap up on that says, clearly it's got a history that says it's quite good at what it does, but there's all this talent and creativity that can't get to market. It can't get there. What's the thing that what can people like me and Bill do to help change that?
Well, that's a long answer, but last year we had this strike, the actors' strike, and that really just kind of put the kibosh on a lot of projects and movement. And now the strike is over, but it seems that it's tougher for creatives to get work. I have friends on the East and West Coast who say, we can't get any work. No one's hiring. It almost seems like a little bit of revenge from the powers that be for protesting. But people are still, things with like TikTok and social media and influencers, I think creatives will always find a way to create content. And ultimately, if the content goes viral or is of any ilk, it's going to get gobbled up by the studios. The studios almost feels like right now they don't really want to do any work. They just want to be a catcher.
Right.
They want people. They want. Sure, they'll still do the big stuff, but creatives almost have to create themselves. Like, people aren't being recruited or anything like that. So, and they've created these systems for creatives to do that. So, but I think at some point there's got to, and that's why studios are trying to be sneaky and use AI so much, because if we don't have to use actors and deal with all their nonsense, we won't. We'll just try and pay them off and use their likeness to create our own films.
Goes to his point, Bill, on that he's almost describing the need that if lawyers get together and you get a family lawyer and a corporate lawyer, and well, what if we did that with creatives, as in his terms, where you put them together as an organization, and then you need a biz connector and a project manager, and you build an organization around that talent. Because Engineers are doing it.
Well, of course. I mean that's kind of what the whole Writers Guild was about and SAG was about, right? Is to bring them together, but it didn't really gel. And the producer really should be the project manager. But a lot of times, it's like producers end up people that you just give a percentage of the money to so that they can put their fucking name on it and you can actually get your money. And everybody's just taking their part of the money to join the club. You know what I'm saying? They're just taking a piece of the money so that you get an opportunity to join the club, and that's huge. Okay, that's huge, and that's what I've spent uh, 4.5 years learning with Satie. I published my second book, Insane in Ukraine, in October of 2019. And who the fuck knew we were going to have a pandemic in December of 2019? Okay. And then by January, someone was contacting me about turning it into a movie, which I wanted. And then I think by July of 2020, Satie and I hooked up, right? It was about that time, I guess. Satie and I hooked up at about July of 2020, and it's been an experience, um, uh, going through this process. It really has,
So, Satie, we were
and
just talking about,
um,
as part of the wrap up, really, that how do we get, if we can get independent talent, and you were talking about the point in after the strike, is it powers that be not hiring to get revenge for that? And if you look at that as the next 5 or 10 years, is that model of bringing creatives together and showing them how to form a business with what we call kind of the biz connector, somebody who helps network for them, and then somebody who rudders it like a project manager. You've got the basis of a new type of organization, and it's no different to what those lawyers do that I mentioned earlier, the barristers. You bring the talent together, and then almost like a fat diamond shape. At one end, you've got the biz connector that go and network and go and get them into certain places. And at the other end, you've got to have the admin, the project management, the operation. And that releases the talent, the creatives, to go and do more of what they do, because that's got to be the objective.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, the content is what drives the engine.
Right.
And
even if
it's
you
got to
did
be
have
good content.
AI actors and you're plucking them out of a database or something like that, okay? And then I pay a licensing fee for using this AI actor and I do my movie on my computer in my kitchen, I still need a fucking story.
Yeah, you need a story, and the humanity. I mean, like Aladdin wouldn't be as good if Robin Williams wasn't doing the voice of Aladdin.
Right.
Right.
Because you still need that human connection, and even though studios or whatever want to try and have AI, it's still just not the human connection is why we go see it, because we want to connect emotionally.
Absolutely.
Right.
We want to laugh, we want to cry, we want to be exhilarated, we want to be horrified, and that all stems
Right.
from the human connection. And no matter what studios or technology comes up, it's still not going to take away from that. If they find a way to do that, then it's game over. But right now,
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet.
and I'm sure they're trying to work on it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean,
So, Mr. Bill, what's our
but yeah,
closing
my
that's
thoughts
friend.
for today then?
I was just gonna say, Satie, thank you, my friend, for joining us today. We are literally, people, 1 week away from launch. Okay,
very exciting.
1 week away from launch. Trying to make sure that we're on all the proper platforms. So doing all the project management stuff.
Okay, well,
But
let me know and I'll post it. I'll repost.
you got it, buddy. Thank you very
Terrific to
much.
meet you,
And
Satie.
All right, take care. Yes,
thank you
sir.
very much, everybody. Let's get
Bye
her
bye.
done this week. Bye.
Bye.